Welcome to another daily live webcast called Jencast, the live show that happens Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern here on YFElive.com. It's Thematic Thursday, and for Thematic Thursday, we're talking about 100 episodes of YFEchat Live. This is the live show that is our flagship show. It started 2 years ago, 100 episodes ago today, and we're talking about how we got to 100 episodes with @the Harris, who is my co-host. She has her own podcast and, of course, her own rock star business doing social media. She is the social media pro, so I'm really excited to talk to her about her take on everything live webcasting, live events, and all the stuff that we've done with YFEchat Live. So Stacy, thank you for joining us this morning. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on 100 episodes. Can you believe it's been 100 episodes?
I can't, and I actually looked it up to see when my first episode of YFE was, and it was April of 2012. So I've been around for most of those 100 episodes. It's crazy.
Yay. And
that was the first one I ever watched.
I was trying to remember, like, why? Like, what? Why did you start getting involved?
Well, I watched that first episode because Amanda Atkin was on from the Girl's Guide to Web Design. Now it's the Girl's Guide to all sorts of stuff. But at the time it was Girl's Guide to Web Design. And I was checking out her course and I wanted to hear from her. So I watched the show and I immediately became obsessed. And that's actually how I met a bunch of people that I have worked with since and know since is through YFE. And then I started getting involved not long after that, I think pretty close. I reached out and was like, hey, can I hang out with you? You're super cool. And then I've done this kind of stuff where I've co-hosted with you. I've done after parties. I've done all sorts of stuff with YFE since then.
Well, so let's talk about what it is that you actually do, because this is you don't just do this stuff with YFE. You have @the Harris, thestacyharris.com, and you've made some transitions over the year. So what are you working on right now, and who are you helping?
Right now, I work with online entrepreneurs, mostly women. I have one dude client. It's mostly women. And we really try to shift your social media from sort of blah and ineffective and haphazard to super effective and awesome, where you have crowds of raving fans who will follow you everywhere, which is what I was able to do in my business and why I've been able to evolve from a VA when I very, very first started to doing consulting and strategy development now, and speaking and podcasting and all that sort of cool stuff.
Well, and it's funny too, because having you involved with YFE has been it's evolved over the years. So over the years, it has been 2 years. Okay, so
yeah, we can use the plural now.
Yeah, and so Ovaleye, for behind the scenes, everything that happens with YFEchat Live, there's myself and my parents are the main people here, and so we kind of handle the business decisions together. And my parents, they definitely saw the same thing that I saw in having you involved with the live webcast. Because technically, we do this for other brands. We could have someone work on chat or whatever, but it was really important to us to have your face and your name and your brand on the chat. Because we're going to talk about this in just a second. We're going to talk about what it is that kept us going for 100 episodes, and some advice for other people that want to do consecutive events or consecutive pieces of content. So it's not necessarily live webcasts. It could be podcasts, it could be a series, it can be whatever. So that's what we're going to get into in just a moment. But I want to make sure that people note that Stacy is a big reason why YFEchat Live is so much fun to go to. There's an energy that you bring into the chat, and that when you're not here, that's definitely a noticeable difference. And so
thank you.
I think that's really important. And I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable or whatever, but I wanted to make sure.
You just keep going.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I brought that up before we got going.
No, I really appreciate it. I love being a part of it, and I have so much fun. So it's probably, I think, always part of the reason that things go well is you enjoy doing it. Yeah. It's a lot harder to get that energy when you hate what you're doing. So it's super fun, and I love being a part of it. And I think that a big part of the reason the show is so successful is you are such an engaging host, and also we get such cool guests, and also we have such a cool community of people that show up every week to hang out with us. That helps a lot.
Isn't that the fun part too, is getting to chat with everyone? I feel like I've said this before. I feel like I know a lot of people, so when people reach out and they start to introduce themselves to me, I'm like, I already know who you are. I stalk you on Twitter. So anyway, let's get into this whole motivation, because 100 episodes in 2 years. I love doing YFEchat live, but at the same time, there are days and weeks where I'm like, why the heck am I doing this? Because it's not like we're making millions of dollars through it. It's not like millions of people are watching, but it's still just something that is enjoyable for probably 80% of the time. Would you agree with me, Stacey?
I think so. And I think that we have built, or we get to engage with such a cool core community that it brings it back over and over again. But that's a lot of episodes, and 2 years is a long commitment. I mean, especially as entrepreneurs, we all sort of flow in our business and evolve, and things change. It's a big time, and it's a big commitment to do something every week.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring up 3 pieces of advice as far as keeping going, keeping motivated. And the first one is having a strong why. And this comes back to Simon Sinek. And Stacey, we talk about this all the time on YFEchat Live. Why did you start your business? Why are you doing this? And leading with that why. And I feel like if your why is to get a sponsor or to have that, up at the top, you're not going to stay in it for that long, because that just doesn't happen. I mean, we got really lucky having MailChimp involved, because they are incredibly passionate about helping young women in their businesses. But I mean, I've talked to, 50 other people that have reached out and asked me about our show, and it just, for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out. And so if that's your end goal, it's not a good reason to get into something like this. And again, if it's to get new clients or something like that, it's also not a good reason, because none of that is guaranteed. What is guaranteed is what you the work you can do to influence others, I guess.
I agree, and I think it's the same is true for podcasting. I know for me, getting a sponsor isn't even on my radar for my show, because I just like it because I get to talk to people instead of having to write and people have to read it. It's just a way more fun way for me to connect with people. So that's my why I have a podcast. You know what I mean? So I think you're right. Just like with your business, if your first instinct is, because I want to make money, that's going to be very difficult to sustain. Yeah,
well, and it was funny. I've been listening to a couple different podcast programs that are talking about here's how you get a sponsor. And I'm just like, there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts on iTunes, and about 2% of them are sponsored materials. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. And then also, whether it's, a podcast or whatever it is, it's weekly content. If you're putting out a blog or if you're holding events, you have to remember it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. If you have a bigger why and things aren't turning out the way that you had in your mind, just remember every day you're going to improve and keep going, because it's not going to happen overnight. Whether it's in achieving your goal or creating the quality piece of whatever you're putting out there, is just not going to happen.
It's true. And you'll get better and better, especially if you're doing something where you're interviewing people. I know that I enjoy listening and editing my shows much more now than I did when I first did them, because I've sort of hit a rhythm and I've sort of found, my voice. And it's the same thing doing a web show or blogging or whatever. It does take time to sort of find your spot in it.
Yeah. Well, and the last point is to enjoy it. Like we were saying, you have to love to do this. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to stay consistent with it. But like I said, there is about 20% of the time where I really hate this. It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of rejection. I mean, you pitch people to be on the show all the time because, like you said, quality guests is one of the most important things that you can do when you do something like this. And so there's a lot of rejection, and you have to remind yourself whenever you're ready to give up on something. I think this is so key. This is one of the reasons why I've done well, is because people give up on stuff and they hand it over to me, and I am just willing to run the marathon and not, be relying on the sprint. So anyway, sit back and think about, what is it that you hate about this right now? Is it something that's temporary? Is it something you can fix with a small tweak? Is it something that needs to be evolved? I mean, don't just give up on it because today really sucked.
Yeah. And, you're going to have guests that, cancel at the last minute, or
all the time.
who just ignore you, or, you know what I mean? It's going to happen. You kind of just have to plow through. And, I have a guest on my podcast tomorrow who's talking about the same thing, even in email marketing. If you find that it's something you hate, she's like, then change the format of your emails. Change how you do it. Look at how you do it and figure out what it is you hate about it and try and change that. But you have to enjoy it, and you have to love doing it, and you have to really be excited about it, or it's never going to be really successful. Also, everybody who says they love my hair, thank you. I'm like seeing all these really nice things about me go by, and it's hard to ignore.
I have to say, though, that having you back with pink hair has really made a difference in our live shows. I think
it's made a difference in my business, too.
We should write out a contract for you that says you may be a co-host on the show so long as you have pink hair. Do you think that would be horrible?
I really don't. I would sign that. I really don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. It is sort of my thing.
I mean, if someone was meant to have pink hair, it would be you. But so anyway, moving on, because we only have a few more minutes left. What a live webcast. So, okay, here's the thing. With YFEchat Live, I want to just take this time, since we're sitting down and we're actually talking about it, to clarify, because I get asked this in interviews all the time about creating content, creating podcasts. I do not believe, so Ovaleye TV, this is the company that's behind everything Young Female Entrepreneurs does. I do not see, this is a philosophical thing. Our entire company believes this. I don't see a live webcast as being content first. To me, it is an event. And that's something that differs. So this is a very male-led industry, people that do these live broadcasts that aren't just through Google Hangouts. And even Google Hangouts, I feel like, is pretty male-saturated.
Yes.
But see, I feel like this is a difference. Whenever I talk to my male peers, they talk about the content and the post-production, the editing that they do afterwards. I'm like, why are you doing any editing and post-production, first of all? Mm-hmm. That's why you do a live webcast, whether it's for an interview type series. Before this, with our web hosting business, my mom and I would sit in front of the camera, and people would email us all the time, clients asking us advice about small business and things like that. So once a week, we took 30 minutes to sit in front of the camera. It literally took us the 30 minutes. We answered questions. We put it out on YouTube. And when someone had a question, we'd send them the link. And then there would be people in the chat that would respond to us and go back and forth. And it was just so easy. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we see this as an event first. Now, but because with like any event, you have to fill it with content, right? Mm-hmm. So it's an event that is a piece of content, and that's one of the nice things about doing these types of live webcasts, is that rather than a Twitter chat or an in-person event or whatever it is, that piece of content will live on and still have meaning and still have that entertainment value in it afterwards. So like Felix Baumgartner, I use this example all the time because that was the moment I realized I really needed to focus on live webcasting. When he jumped out of that spaceship, it was an amazing event, right? Or the balloon or whatever it is. And it was so exciting to watch him. And it's just as exciting today to watch the documentary being played back. Mm-hmm. Because the event still made sense. It still had purpose. And so if you're going to create something like that, those are some things that I would definitely take into consideration. And I wanted to just do a personal plug. I never do these, but I wanted to do a personal plug. If you go to overlay.tv/join, we have a couple of videos coming out, a series on how we plan out these live webcasts. So I talked about on Trello how we use Trello, and so I'm sharing that with everyone in the video. So make sure that you join that. If this is something that you're interested in doing, whether it's podcasting or doing Google Hangouts or creating in-person events, this is how we plan everything out. Stacy's on our Trello board, and it's been really effective.
Also, because of that, I created a Trello board for my podcast. Like all the stuff in my podcast gets run through a Trello board. Like all my guests are organized there, my shows, all of that. So it works.
It's super helpful.
For whatever your medium may be.
Yeah.
Super effective. It's almost like you're storyboarding.
Yeah, exactly. I'm obsessed with it. So as an event, as an event, you play hostess. This is the important thing. When you are doing any kind of live webcast or podcast or anything that features another person, I believe you should never rely or ask that person to share the show. I think you can make it easy, but don't expect them to share their replay, because there's a lot of things that could go into whether or not they want to share it with their audience, and that's your fault, your audience, or the host's fault. If you didn't make them look their best, then it was your fault that they're not sharing it, that type of a thing. And so playing hostess, I think, is a very important job, and especially in a live event, Stacy, I think you play the most important job, because the best thing about the event is that it's not necessarily the speaker or the person that's presenting on the video that is going to bring the most benefit. It's usually the chat. being able to go back and forth with people, ideas on top of ideas. I always quote Seth Godin's Tribes. He talks about the idea that the leader is not the important person. The leader is important because she's providing the platform for other people to put ideas on top of ideas. And so, Stacy, you do a fantastic job of fostering this in the chat. So I wanted to ask you about some advice as far as if you're doing an in-person event, an online event, what are some social aspects that make you a good hostess or a hostess with the mostest?
Hostess with the mostest? I'm going to get a shirt that says that. For me, the very first thing and the easiest thing you can do is have a nice hashtag that you use for all events. For example, you guys all know we use the hashtag YFEchat during YFEchat because you hear me talk about it in the pre-show, and then Jen mentions it at the beginning of the show. You guys know where you can go to find out the link to this week's episode really easily, or to connect with other people that are participating. And the best thing I like about that is because so much of that live event, either in person or online, is about networking and connecting, is you don't just connect in the chat and it's sort of a random profile. It's really easy to connect with people long term through Twitter or whatever. So have a hashtag and engage with it. That's also how my second point is, it makes it really easy for you to invite those people to future events because you know that they've already participated actively, not just passively where they just sort of watched it and didn't, engage. These are people who are engaging. These are usually your people that are going to be your biggest supporters. So inviting them to see shows in the future is a really good way to expand your audience because then they invite people and they feel special because they got invited. So it's being a hostess and sort of being able to say, hey, this is where we are. Come hang out with us.
Well, and I think it's important to note, too, that you mentioned, at the very beginning, you don't ever assume that people know where to participate in the chat.
Right.
You always over-explain things. And I think that's something that a lot of us forget to do. I know I work with brands every day in doing these live webcasts, and it's something that we really have to drill in their heads that every 15 minutes. I mean, if you watch the news, this is something that Bethany recently wrote about because her show is getting canceled. And she wrote about how one of the best pieces of advice was that as a host, you have to play traffic cop. So you have to say, coming up, this is what's happening. We were just watching, and that type of a thing. And I think that's just being a good hostess, over-explaining, over-communicating, being there to make sure that people feel more than welcome.
Well, and also you find that people are going to join throughout the show. Not everybody joins in 15 minutes, 10 minutes before the episode to hang out with me before the show. So if the only time we mention the hashtag was then we're going to lose like half the people who come to watch the show. This is also something you can implement just outside of I did this for webinars. I use this for my podcast. That's not even a live event. And I encourage people to engage with me at the hashtag with their feedback from the episode. Like this is something you can use in every piece of your business. Really getting people to engage with your brand, through the event, whether it be a live event or a recorded event. Well, and I
wanted to end on that on a similar note in that, this is applicable. We're talking about live webcasts. We're talking about YFEchat Live and all of the stuff that we've done for 100 episodes. But this is a bigger picture. It's about being going forward with something even when you totally suck. And I heard this quote, or I saw this video the other day on Facebook, and I needed to make sure that I shared it with people. And it was from Ira Glass. He's the host and producer of This American Life. And he says, and it's a huge paragraph. I'll have to share the video below this. But he says, what nobody tells people who are beginners, and I really wish someone had told this to me, is that all of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But there is this gap. For the first couple years, you make stuff and it's just not that good. It's trying to be good. It has potential, but it's not. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer. And your taste is why your work disappoints you. A lot of people never get past this phase. They quit. Most people I know who do interesting creative work went through years of this. And so what he says is basically just stick with it even though you suck right now. And I think, I definitely don't feel like we've gotten to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, every week I'm super proud of what we just produced. But every week we're making small improvements. Every week we're getting out there and trying stuff. And I think that's what I want to make sure that we hit home with everyone, whether it's a live webcast, it's in your business, or any kind of consecutive event or piece of content is to keep going.
I agree. And I think there's another quote, and I cannot remember who it was, and I will find it and put it in the comments, is, if you think the first product you put out was perfect, you waited too long. Like, you put it out, like, do your thing, and it'll get better.
I know. I was just talking to someone about that. Like, the mic is not perfect that I'm using, and I'm like, well, you have to start somewhere. If you're waiting for the perfect mic, then you're in trouble.
I picked this one up for $60 on Amazon because I needed a mic that wasn't on my computer. And this summer, I'm going to get a soundboard and everything will get improved for the podcast. But for right now, this $60 mic works pretty well. Like, it's good.
It does.
It plugs into my computer and we're good to go.
It does. All right, Stacey, where can everyone find you after this?
You guys can find me at thestaceyharris.com and on the Twitter at... You can find me on Twitter at... Not the Twitter. At the Stacey Harris. See, the does just show up everywhere. So at the Stacey Harris. And you guys can find me tonight at YFEchat Live, co-hosting the 100th episode. So don't miss that.
Yay! Thank you so much for joining me this morning, Stacey.
It was fun. I like to hang out with you. And remember on YFEchat to always join like 10 minutes early because that's when I get on and get to ramble and be silly. So show up a few minutes early.
Yay! All right, everyone, you've just been watching at the Stacey Harris, the Stacey Harris, who that's who we all affectionately call her, is the Stacey Harris, if you want to know her well. So like Stacey said, show up tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for YFEchat Live. It's more than content. It's an event. It's a chance to network with your peers. Thank you so much for watching GenCast. It's a live show that happens Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and it's 15 minutes usually. This one went a little bit over. Make sure that you sign up for yfe.me/mailed it to find out more about young female entrepreneurs and all the things that we're doing. Otherwise, have a fantastic Thursday. Hope to see you tonight.